My understanding was the team arrived really early because it's their party and security wasn't ready for them to come in yet. So
so that's important context too. It's also like, to be fair, like in all the spaces in which women have been outsiders, which are many and like have not been allowed in, like getting into the club is like actually the one area where women have actually outpaced men. Like that's such a weird moment.
Let's take the W's when we can.
We definitely have the heads up in that one area. Hello everyone, GM, welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs. We are once again coming at you, not live, but recorded from Miami, from Art Basel. And I am joined by the one and only Shannon Snow, the Chief Operating Officer of World of Women, fresh off of the World of Women Gala. So both of us maybe lagging a little bit more today than we have been in past days. I don't know how you feeling, Shannon.
My voice is gravelly, but I feel great. It's an honor to be here.
You know?
Yeah, I'm bringing a new vibe post-gala.
We love
appreciate it.
So I don't usually dive too deep into folks' backgrounds on this podcast because I figure your kind of reputation where you stand with World of Women speaks for itself. But I would love for you to just kick off by talking about the decision to make the jump from Meta. You were at Google for a decade, then at Meta, deciding to leave a big company like that for something obviously much more precarious and unknown like an NFT project. Talk us through that decision.
Yeah, well, it really came down to passion and purpose. I was a holder of World of Women. I love the mission in terms of building inclusion in Web3. And at the end of the day, sure, there's uncertainty coming into a startup. World of Women is 20 people right now. But ultimately, we only have time, and time is our most important asset. And when I was thinking about that decision, I thought, what do I want to devote the rare, precious moments of my life to? Working on a mission that I care about, which is helping inclusion, equality, representation in tech, Web3, and obviously the larger world. But I thought there's no better way to spend the rare moments that we have on Earth.
What month did you join World of Women?
The announcement was made in May, and I joined in June.
Okay, was it right after? It was like right after Galaxy launch, right?
It was after Galaxy.
Okay, so it's like a well-capitalized risk. You know what I mean? You're like, I'm making a risk, but this at least is a company that's decently well-funded right now. You guys timed it well right before, I think, really things went
Well, from a team standpoint, obviously from Galaxy, that was huge in terms of the company being able to hire and then be able to scale beyond the 4-person founding team to actually hiring really top talent. But I think that from a personal perspective, I've always really guided my career based on learning. Yeah. When I joined Google, it seems insane now, but it wasn't a huge company. It was 5,000 people. It wasn't crazy small, but it wasn't this wild tech behemoth. It became big tech around me versus joining big tech. So I didn't really have that expectation in my career that I was going to be working at these huge established corporations. It sort of just ended up that way. The reason I got there was I just loved learning. I was at Stanford. It was like, oh, tech is happening around us in Silicon Valley. I used to write for a precursor of TechCrunch called Red Herring, where we would drive all around Silicon Valley, interview every single startup founder, and just learn about what they're building. And that's what inspired me to join tech in the first place. Like, I wanted to just be in this environment where I could learn and be really close to tech.
When it comes to NFTs, convenience often wins over security, despite scams being everywhere. Brands and artists have no other choice by complying with big marketplace terms and weak security because no good alternative exists, which is what prompted Ledger to fix the problems of NFTs themselves and launch Ledger Market. The Ledger Market provides an end-to-end secure NFT experience for brands, artists, and users, enabling true ownership and control over NFT assets, from minting to storing. Ledger Market secures NFT projects via Ledger Enterprise, keeping you protected from phishing attacks and scams. And the market directs users to Ledger Live, where they can transact with a contract directly, giving clear signing details instead of blind signing and praying. Don't trust, verify with clear signing from Ledger Market. Stay up to date on the latest drops and marketplace updates by following Ledger on Twitter and joining the Ledger Open Discord, which is linked in the show notes below. BUENO is the NFT toolkit you need to launch your digital collectible on the blockchain without coding. Every step of the NFT creation process, from generation to mint, all taken care of by the BUENO NFT toolkit. With BUENO, you can load up your art layers, reorder the layers, tinker with rarity, everything you need to make your NFT project a reality. BUENO even allows you to mint your tokens on the blockchain with zero code and offers advanced minting logic like linking allow lists, airdropping tokens, and on-chain royalty configuration. As a part of their launchpad, you'll get access to forums to run surveys, email collection, and build your pre-sale list to make sure you are hooked into your own community. BUENO is full of powerful tools you need to build the most expressive NFT project possible. So go to bueno.art and start building your own collections today.
Let's talk about, because it was so recent, the New Yorker piece that came out about YAM. I want to get your reaction, and if you can speak for the team, like what was the team's reaction to this piece? We'll talk about it for anybody who hasn't read it, but just first your reaction.
Yeah, well, Molly, who wrote the piece, deeply embedded with YAM, so it was a very in-depth
for like 4 months.
So the piece started in June. I think that she actually came to NFT NYC. Molly actually traveled to Lisbon. She covers extensively some time that we had as a team together. So there was definitely time spent in person, multiple interviews with members of the community. And so certainly it's a very thoughtful piece. It's very well researched. Obviously, there's going to be takes that that you have both inside
It's a
and outside
crypto
the
piece. Like the media isn't allowed, I think, to like be too friendly towards crypto right now, unless you're SBF apparently. But
yeah, but I mean, ultimately, I think it's a sign that YAM is an icon. She's culturally relevant. Her work is historically significant, but certainly there's a lot of uncertainty around the crypto market. And so I think it did a good job of sharing her story really authentically, and then saying, hey, you have this incredible mission, you have this incredible art, but where to go in this market where so many things are uncertain.
Did Molly, the author, like when she approached y'all, what was her approach? What was she kind of interested in? Why was she interested in this story? Do you have a sense of that?
I hadn't joined World of Women when that approach happened, so I actually don't know the full context, but
it's crazy. I feel like you've been a part of World of Women for so long, and it's like, it's been, like, this New Yorker piece has been in the works for longer. The other way, like, you've made such an impact, I feel like, quickly, and the space moves so fast, and it's honestly, feels like it's a year, and it hasn't been.
YAM is so humble and amazing. When I joined, it was 3 weeks later, we did the NFT NYC event with Madonna.
Yeah.
And someone else had to tell me that YAM was going to be appearing in W magazine. I was like, YAM, are you appearing in W? And she was like, oh, it's not a big deal. They're really nice people. And so the whole thing was very understated, in which I love about the entire WOW team. Everyone's extremely humble, hardworking, really just wants to focus on the mission. And I think that's part of, there's this kind of section at the end of the New Yorker piece.
Okay, that's the piece I wanted to talk about. So I think the piece overall felt fair, and you know what I mean? It's not like a rave, not even so much, again, I feel like the negative stuff was more, or any hints of negativity were more about kind of crypto and the NFT market in general, which is to be expected. We're down bad. I think the framing, which we'll talk about, this sort of, World of Women had this amazing, made a bunch of money, whatever, like now what, I think is actually fair. And I want to talk about that. Of course, that's sort of the bulk of this interview is now what. But the ending was so weird. The ending to me felt like a journalist trying to figure out how to wrap up a story. And so being like, this is hooky, even though maybe it isn't fair, but I want to get your thoughts. So to give folks context, this piece talks about different things happening at World of Women. It talks about YAM. It talks about Gary Vee and various partnerships that have come out for World of Women and the community. And again, like a little bit of maybe a skeptical tone through some of it, but not negative per se. And then it ends seemingly like kind of apropos of, it doesn't really feel like anything that has sort of come before it, with YAM and some of the World of Women team not able to get into their own World of Women Madonna party in New York during NFT NYC. Of all these celebrities inside, the author sort of paints the picture of all the celebrities inside, and YAM and the team can't get in. And it ends with this line essentially about still being outsiders. And it's making this very clear point that I guess women are still outsiders in this space, or NFT people are still outsiders in the world of Hollywood. I don't even know exactly. But I just felt like that was lame. I was like, this feels like a weird ending. It doesn't feel like it's really been geared up to from the rest of this piece. And I want to get your thoughts. I don't see you guys as outsiders at all. I think you guys have made incredible strides and have amazing partnerships. And so how did you feel about it?
Well, I wasn't there for that moment. I mean, my understanding
of her not being able to get into the party.
My understanding was the team arrived really early because it's their party, and security wasn't ready for them to come in yet. So
so that's important context too. It's also to be fair, in all the spaces in which women have been outsiders, which are many and like have not been allowed in, like getting into the club is like actually the one area where women have actually outpaced men. Like that's such a weird moment.
Let's take the W's when we can.
We definitely have the heads up in that one area.
Oh my gosh. But you know what, honestly, I don't necessarily, obviously it was an interesting way to end the article, and being, you know, someone who was in the community and then came into the team, what I will say is, you know, the team operates as underdogs, even though those that may not know that much about NFTs, a lot of people have told me, oh, if you know about NFTs, you know about Bored Ape Yacht Club and you know about World of Women, if you're not deeply in the space. They have iconic brands, you know, they've kind of broken out into the mainstream. But the team is very humble and they're very hardworking. And ultimately, I think that we're really anchored to this long-term mission of equality in tech and in Web3. And in some ways, you can really feel like an outsider sometimes.
Yeah.
In a business where there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of let's have bravado on Twitter. I think that despite even to setting aside the gender piece, right? Working towards a mission that is going to be generational, building a brand that is outside, you know, Web3 and really trying to be much more in terms of iconic representation. And for women, you can feel like an outsider sometimes because you're on a different timeline. You're working to something different. And so in that sense, I think it's okay for our team to operate with a little bit of chip on our shoulder or a little bit sense that in some ways we are playing a different game than some of the rest of the space, and we're okay with that because we have long-term goals.
Yeah, and I think the having an underdog mentality, I think every NFT project should have an underdog mentality because y'all are all underdogs, you know? And I think I've talked to Sarah Bauman about this at Women in Weapons. I've actually interviewed her several times for like panels. Haven't gotten her on the show yet. We got to make it happen. But you know, I think she's talked about like, you know, you have this energy, you have this amazing community, you go to talk to, you know, Hollywood studios or whatever the case is, right? And it's like, oh, cool, like you have this, you know, this many followers on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, right? And then it's like, okay, how many holders? And it's like 5,000, you know, or like 10,000. I think, you know, you guys have the WowG crew, which you have a big holder base, but it's still by like, you know, a traditional Hollywood standard, nothing. You know, they're like, okay, like, you know, we'll talk, whatever. So I think obviously projects need to have an underdog mentality, which is healthy and true. And I mean, anybody in this space is a little bit of an outsider in, you know, to the mainstream for sure. So I get that. So let's talk about, again, this what now, which was the framing of the New Yorker piece, which again, I thought was fair to say like, okay, all of this amazing success. You have Eva Longoria and Reese Witherspoon and I'm sure countless others who are like Paris Hilton changing their profile picture to World of Women avatars, raising a bunch of money through these NFT sales, lots of enthusiasm. And then this bear market hits, you know, and everything sort of, everyone's trying to figure out what the long tail of projects look like. Where are you guys at with all of that?
We've been really trying to focus on what matters. One of the things I really like to do is just ground yourself in your team and community anytime there's chaos around you. Our team has been talking as much as possible, doing one-on-one calls with many, many holders to try to understand what they really care about. And I think what's been really interesting is we do want to make sure that we are creating an incredible experience for our community. And a lot of the things on our Starmap are opportunities that we absolutely have available to us. But it's interesting. One of the things that we are known for is being the front door to women for Web3, front door for women in the metaverse. But ultimately, when we talk to our holders, what they tell us is absolutely the metaverse is cool. However, what's most important is who I'm able to connect with there, who I'm able to meet there, and what I'm able to achieve together. So it's really grounding us in how we think about our overall strategy, making sure that we're balancing this vision of, you know, helping women enter into tech and Web3, but also making sure they have a really meaningful experience.
To give context for folks, you mentioned this Starmap. Maybe we can flash a picture of it or something on the screen. I'm looking at it now. It's like, it's an entire galaxy, you know, it's very, so the Starmap being sort of something you'd put out earlier this year, or World of Women had put out earlier this year as sort of like not an org chart, 'cause it's not about the players in the org, but it's like, you know, we're fashion and World of Women Presents and the World of Women Foundation and IRL events and the WOW Network and merch and content and physical goods and metaverse, basically all the verticals you guys are playing in, have the opportunity to play in. And it's a lot.
It's a lot.
So
right?
that's sort of when you say, like, how do we focus, whatever, and you talk about that Starmap, I think I'm assuming in this kind of a market, it stops being as feasible, and frankly probably never is feasible for any sort of startup to realistically go after all of these things all at once.
Well, it's also a timeline, right? We're thinking about generational brand, we're thinking long term, and many of the things on the Starmap, like, they are very much in progress, but we also have to look at the galaxy and see what stars come brightest. So we're starting to talk about, like, what is the constellation, right? Of course, the galaxy is out there. We are going to go there, absolutely. But for the next year, you know, what are the stars that are going to come brightest? What are the constellations we're going to see? And for us, it's one, making sure that we're doing the best we can to create partnerships that will get World of Women and our mission outside of Web3. So it's partnerships like with House of Harlow, you know, established brand.
Nicole
Richie, creating, you know, jewelry, bags, you know, launching merch and cool collabs that are going to allow us to step outside Web3 and hopefully introduce us to an audience and other people to our mission. You know, that maybe not necessarily are in the Web3 space yet.
And why House of Harlow? Like, does that reflect in some way a particular audience you're looking to target, something about Nicole Richie's audience, or why that particular fashion partnership?
Well, certainly there's a lot of interest from our community in fashion. I think, you know, our merch drops have had incredible conversion rates and done really well. We recently launched WOW Galaxy merch and did this incredible customizable experience where you could do 700,000 different combinations specifically with your NFT. And I think there is like a natural piece there. It's also about being seen. We're really looking to sign partnerships across many different categories that really align with what people like to do in the world, right? Not everyone loves to spend their entire day degenning out. We love that piece of our community, but you know, people are drinking wine, they're wearing clothes, they're playing games. World of Women Monopoly is one of the other things that will be dropping in Q1 2023, introducing this idea of, you know, the Web3 ecosystem to your kids and being able to play together and to have this experience. So it's really about getting outside of this niche that we have and getting our mission out there.
When you talk to holders doing these kind of surveys, it sounds like almost, and they say it's about who do we bring in, the metaverse is cool, but we want to, like, what does that translate into from a tactical projects, what our priorities are perspective?
Yeah. So from a community standpoint, so certainly outside as a brand, getting brand partnerships is a key piece. I think another key piece is really building our community and creating tools and ways for them to connect together. So we recently announced that we are re-upping and kind of making better a long-standing and beloved piece of being a World of Women holder, which was art drops. World of Women loves to elevate up-and-coming artists. One of the perks of holding a WOW was getting art drops from new artists that you could get introduced to. But what we found is it's a very passive experience to just receive the art. You know, it shows up in your wallet. Of course, you get that sense of it being introduced to something, but could it be better? So in February of this year, or 2023, we're going to be launching Art Fest, which is much more a collaborative experience. It's going to happen once a quarter, aligned with the full moon.
Oh, cool.
Where you will be able to log in the 7 days surrounding the full moon, have access to new art based on the type of WOW that you hold, and have much more of a communal experience of being able to look forward to it by knowing, hey, the full moon's coming. I'm going to get my my art drop. I'm going to be able to gather with the community and have Art Fest, as well as this process of adding more community elements to our owned website so that people can really connect there. And we want to continue to build more and more features in that realm because ultimately people are telling us that, you know, I can only go to the gala once a year. Like there's a couple IRL meetups. I might be in the Discord, but as a women-focused community, we have way more holders that don't feel comfortable on Discord, that would rather be on Instagram, that would rather interact in other ways. And so we want to be investing in the tools and experiences on our site and other places where our community feels safe and comfortable to create those type of experiences.
So you have the art piece and the lifting up more artists. Obviously, Yam's story is so amazing, and folks are probably familiar with it. And you have this just amazing, super talented artist who gets, kind of, I don't want to say plucked because I feel like that doesn't give her enough agency, but like has this kind of surreal experience of like making $1.5 million overnight essentially on her art. Gary Vee, kind of famously was tweeting about her art and loved it and her NFTs. And so that feels very core to y'all's history, is that sort of artist empowerment piece. And then when you talk about with Monopoly and with House of Harlow, I assume those are like licensing deals where you're licensing the World of Women IP in some capacity to those brands. Obviously, you all made the decision to give rights to holders. So when you license that IP, are you licensing WoW characters that are held by World of Women y'all? Are you working with your holders to have them license some of their characters? How does that play out?
We have a bank of WoWs that we use for our own licensing deals. And the idea is, certainly by working with the core WoW brand and signing some of these deals, we will increase the reputation of the brand and also allow the holders who own their own IP to draft off of that success. We really want to model the behavior. We've been trying to make sure that we're doing everything we can to empower WoW holders with their IP. I think the Galaxy report from Galaxy Digital that came out, they actually rated World of Women's IP rights actually one of the highest in the industry in terms of permissiveness. And we're trying to do everything we can to uplift and give examples of people who are doing it really well. During the WoW Gala, we actually had this concept of the WoW Awards. We gave 8 awards that highlighted things that we want to see and amplify in the WoW community. One of the awards was innovative use of IP. And so we got a list of
Was that Leslie? Did Leslie win that
Leslie
one?
Leslie won.
Love a Leslie shout out.
Fantastic. We also had Sakari, who has Cyber Green Juice, has created a whole product around his WoW G, and we want to do more to make sure that we're amplifying that.
For folks who don't know, Leslie is the World of Women holder who frequently paints herself entirely blue, like dresses up as her World of Women character, fully blue. She was doing interviews with folks on the purple carpet at the WoW Gala, but she's done it for NFT NYC and really has embraced that character as part of her identity. I think we're certainly not far enough into the NFT journey as a space to really be able to do a postmortem or an analysis of the different the outcomes of these different sort of rights pieces. Like you have a Moonbirds going full CC0, obviously plenty of others that have gone CC0. You have a more restrictive licensing, like you have a collectible style like a Gary Vaynerchuk or a VFriend style, and then you have this sort of realm in between of like that Bored Ape really kicked off where you own the IP for this particular ape, though it's complicated because of these licensing agreements and all that has to be still sort of borne out entirely. Obviously World of Women is in that middle camp. What have been maybe the pros and cons, if you feel like you can speak to them up to this point, of being a project with that kind of structure? Has it made it harder at times to enter into partnerships or make deals because brands are nervous about holders having IP? Where have been the places where you feel like it's awesome and maybe where it's been more challenging?
I think that it hasn't necessarily come up. Most of the companies that approach us, and there's many conversations that are in progress. But ultimately, what they love about the World of Women brand is it's an inspiring brand. We give a ton. We committed $2 million to charity for women and girls causes as well as climate over the past year, thanks to the percentage of sales donated from WoW and WoW-G. So ultimately, it hasn't necessarily come up because one of the things that brands really struggle with in partnering with Web3 is brand safety and being aligned with a project that, doesn't have a lot of history, right? It's a new space. And so ultimately that hasn't become, kind of a key issue in negotiations. It's really been about, hey, we love the inspirational mission. We love that you're artist and women-led. We love that you are truly, working deeply with, UN SDG to work on key issues. And so I think while for our space, we're deep into it. We really understand, like, hey, there's a lot of nuances here. But ultimately, when you think about who you're licensing to, they're much more thinking about their concerns, which is my brand going to be aligned with something that is going to help me move forward? So it hasn't necessarily come up as much as you would potentially expect.
I would also think there would be nervousness on certain brands' parts, and I'm sure there are for some of them, of like, somebody owns a WoW and they go license it in a porno. Like, like they go do something that isn't aligned with the brand, and how does that reflect on a brand partner? But it sounds like maybe they're not really thinking that way, or, at least World of Women has got a better shot than others of not being used in that way. Is that sort of the thinking?
Yeah, I mean, of course, that is the risk, right?
Of this space, yeah.
But I believe I'm a glass half full person, and I believe that, probably you don't want to, degrade the mission of an organization that is so focused on empowering humans and giving back to charity.
Sure.
So.
It's probably not a good financial move for you. So that's hopefully everyone's like incentive aligned in that sense.
Yeah.
So a lot of these kind of licensing deals, which are super cool. I'm such a Monopoly fan, so that's fun for me. I actually in middle school did like a whole long project. You had to pick a topic, and I did Monopoly, and I made my Monopoly board of my neighborhood, and like
How
I'm like
cool.
really into Monopoly. So I love this.
Is there photos of this board? I feel I really need to see
I was
this.
in like 6th grade. I was probably 12 years old. So 7th grade, I think it was. I'll ask my parents. They would be the ones who would have it. I had like a laminating machine. I like laminated all the cards. I mean, it was really hardcore. So I love that. I'm excited about Monopoly, and I think the characters definitely lend themselves. Like I had Dogopoly. I mean, I was all in. So my question though is I feel like ultimately your aim is to have story, the lore, like it's great to get the visuals of World of Women out there on a Monopoly board, on, House of Harlow, fashion, etc. But you need to have that story, that character, that development kind of behind that.
Yeah.
Where does that all stand?
Yeah, so Yam has been working a ton on the lore. We actually released a new lore video at the gala that hasn't come out on social yet, but really trying to get into the story behind, what are the planets, where do the women come from, a little bit of the backstory. And that's been something that, she's been really passionate about. We'll see some peeks of it within the Monopoly game, and you'll start to be able to play around with it. But we will be releasing on social a video soon that gets a little bit deeper into where that's going.
And so is that something for, as you look at the 2023 roadmap, say, the art drops seem big, is like short form content that's starting to tease out the lore on that roadmap?
We certainly are thinking through how to get deeper into the lore in ways that really work for our holders. I think that the capacitors drop that we did was really focused on helping the community engage with lore while getting introduced to new products that
Let me ask.
Yeah.
So it was the WoW G holders. The capacitors were dropped to the WoW holders, and then there was like a delay when they were dropped to the WoW G holders. And it was like, is this intentional? Like, and then there was sort of a story behind why that was.
It actually was intentional.
It was intentional. I was like, is this like something went wrong and now they're cleverly putting lore to it, or was this always the plan?
The story was basically, the WoW holders got the capacitors dropped, and then a villain basically intercepted this and, held it back from the WoW G holders.
As a WoW G holder, it was a bummer. No, I'm just kidding. We got it eventually.
You eventually got them. The community had to work together to kind of solve puzzles and get deeply in the lore to release the capacitors. And ultimately, what happened is you were able to transform the capacitor into an on-cyber virtual home designed by Yam. So we will be getting deeper with season 2 of capacitors, but we haven't announced the timing yet.
And so you were mentioning, you said the team is 20. Is that currently or when you joined?
That's a current team.
Okay.
We also have some contractors and different people that work with us on creative projects, but our core team is global, really diverse, and it's just 20 people around the world.
So when you look at 2023, how are you guys thinking about this from like a business decision-making perspective of like, are you looking to scale? Are you saying, you know what, this is time to batten down the hatches a little bit because we don't know how long this winter lasts? How are you guys approaching that, and sort of what's maybe your advice for other maybe smaller projects who are thinking about how to weather this storm?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely are trying to be conservative in our hiring because we feel extremely lucky the resources that we have. We have a really long runway, but that's runway to build. Where we are hiring is our product team. So we have a really well-staffed eng team, but we are looking for a product manager and a VP of product. So we are prioritizing those key hires. And those will help us build out some of the community experiences, the Art Fest and some of the deeper community tools that I've been discussing. But we are trying to be conservative because, every VC that you talk to is like, conserve cash. They've seen it with so many different startups. And, we get a lot of questions from holders. Obviously, they know that WOW has been in a good position financially. And like what we continue to say is what we're investing in is our product, our team, and runway.
COINSHIFT is a leading treasury management and infrastructure platform for DAOs and crypto businesses that need to manage their treasury operations. Every crypto org needs to manage its treasury, and COINSHIFT offers a simple, flexible, and efficient multi-chain treasury management platform built on top of the highly secure Gnosis Safe. With COINSHIFT, your organization can go from primitive single-chain treasury management to expressive, flexible, and multi-chain treasury features, such as global user management, global contacts, proposal management, and many other features that can be shared across an entire organization, allowing users to save time and reduce operational burdens and gas costs. COINSHIFT even has data tools like account reporting across the 7 chains on which it operates. Used by industry powerhouses such as Uniswap Grants, Balancer, Consensus, and Masari, COINSHIFT is speeding up the coordination and efficiency of the organizations that use it. You have to keep up with the frontier, and COINSHIFT makes that easy. So sign up at coinshift.xyz/bankless. We're all bullish on NFTs, but gaining exposure to NFTs as a whole is difficult. How are you supposed to gain broad, generic exposure to an industry that's designed to be unique and non-fungible? CRYPTEX has the answer. CRYPTEX Finance produces synthetic tokens that lets you get exposure to areas of crypto that you otherwise couldn't. Their first product, TCAP, provides broad exposure to the total crypto market cap of all crypto assets. And their second product, JPEGZ, gives you the ability to get exposure to the entire NFT market. It's the first real NFT index token, so you don't have to go hunting for rares or finding under-the-radar opportunities. You just need to own some JPEGs, because JPEGZ tracks all NFT collections with real-time exposure. This is a first-of-a-kind product from CRYPTEX, who has worked in close collaboration with Chainlink for months to ensure accurate price feeds for true exposure. Live minting and trading of JPEGs will open at the end of Q4, so make sure you stay up to date with CRYPTEX Finance by joining their Discord, Telegram, or following them on Twitter.
There's obviously been a lot of conversation about royalties and a lot of projects having to maybe reassess because they're looking at being like, hey, can I expect the same kind of royalties I've had historically in the future with a number of marketplaces going to zero? I think since a lot of that conversation began, of course, then you had OpenSea made the move that they did, which seems to be turning the tide a bit, which is more marketplaces X2Y2, Blur to some extent, are now enforcing creator royalties again. How have you guys been thinking about this since this conversation really started? Were you guys rocked initially, having to think about other revenue streams? Were you sort of already over the royalty piece of the revenue? Where talk me through like how World Women felt this, I guess, last 5 months of this conversation.
Yeah,
Maybe it's not been 5 months again. Who knows what time it is?
From a royalty standpoint, obviously, Yam from a personal perspective, having come from an artist background, having seen like, hey, this is a way that artists could truly be correctly compensated from their work in an ongoing way. Obviously, we stand with artists and creators, and everything that we've done has made sure that we're using the WOW brand to uplift up-and-coming artists that hopefully can be, the next Yam or the next great. So we certainly stand in terms of supporting royalties. That said, on a business perspective, every business model that we've done for WOW has assumed royalties at zero just to prepare because we don't want to, we don't want to assume anything. We want to make sure that we're creating a sustainable business model that doesn't rely on royalties. And I think it's better to prepare for a scenario and then overachieve versus the opposite. So we're certainly, from a WOW standpoint, obviously we have the primary sales and the secondary sales as current revenue streams. We also have licensing as a revenue stream, as well as merch. And then there's other pieces in terms of different brand partnerships that are also emerging. As we launch Art Fest, we're just noticing a ton of interest in people wanting to sponsor, collaborate. I think WOW's brand as being, very socially minded and very brand safe. We get a lot of inbound and people are really looking to sponsor things. And it's been a weird situation in the sense of like, I don't necessarily have anything to sell you right now.
But thank you.
But thank you. And that, and we'll work on that, right?
All companies just eventually become media companies. That's what I've decided. I'm like, everything is just a media I think Gary Vee said that once, and I'm like, it's true. Everything just eventually becomes a media company or starts that way.
Oh my gosh. But I think the other thing that is, kind of getting back to this idea of, where are we building our team is the foundation. So Sandbox is our great partner. They have committed $25 million over the next 5 years to support the mission of bringing women and girls into Web3 in the metaverse. So that is run as a separate company from WoW Studio, but we collaborate together. And so that's the other piece that we're investing in and hiring. We did a program called Let's Mint that helps 300 girls get into and learn how to mint their first NFT. We just launched it in Miami a couple of days ago, but our goal is to really take that into a program that we can scale, as well as support other educational efforts to help women and girls get into Web3. So that's also just going to be a key focus. And certainly from a funding standpoint, it's like a separate funding source for WoW and something that we're really proud to focus on.
On the licensing front, and excuse my naivety here. So when you do a deal with a monopoly, and not that you have to speak about that deal specifically, but obviously they pay a licensing fee to you on an ongoing basis. Is there a rev share on the sales of, if your House of Harlow, sales of that or sales of Monopoly, or is it strictly that licensing fee piece?
Every deal is different, actually, and there's several in negotiation right now. And I think that some, you get cash up front and then you split future profits. Some it's truly a share. It really just depends on the deal structure and what people are looking to get out of it. Certainly, as the bear market has happened, I think it's given some more traditional companies, hey, maybe we don't have to give as favorable of terms. And so I am noticing a shift in negotiations that some companies are starting
we have more leverage now.
Yeah, exactly. Taking that as leverage. But that's just where the negotiation starts, right? That's not necessarily where it finishes.
Yeah. Part of my asking this is I'm curious, are you guys building out, you have a marketing team obviously for WoW itself, I'm sure, and I'm sure the partnership teams are sort of within that and making these deals, but do you have a marketing team that are we're going to be heavily involved in marketing these House of Harlow products? We're building out a board game marketing team, not an entire team necessarily, but to really push Monopoly, and we're going to try and target these folks who are non-NFT native, who may just love Monopoly and may love the look of these characters. How much of that is part of the strategy versus Monopoly markets the Monopoly game, or House of Harlow markets the House of Harlow merch?
It's usually collaboration, right? Because ultimately for all of these partnerships, and Jazwares is another one that we sign. Exactly. Toys, WoW dolls. I mean, I could go into it. It's super interesting in terms of that whole business. But, ultimately what people are trying to do is bring the audiences together, right? And so for any collaboration, you want, them to bring their audience and hopefully, showcase something new and interesting. And then typically they're looking for WoW to bring the Web3 audience. So I think in terms of core capabilities, we hope to, certainly bring, the audience we hold to any partnership we have. But I think it's also about broadening the pie, right? It's one of the reasons why we feel really strongly about the foundation work and just opening the door to having more women in Web3 in general. It's it's not even marketing. It's just hey, let's get awareness for what we're doing here in this entire space and the opportunities involved. So I think it goes a little bit beyond hey, let's market this drop, and we're hey, let's just open the aperture of what we're even doing in the space.
So go into the doll thing for a minute. What has been the biggest or most interesting piece of that deal you kind of lit up? Oh my gosh, there's so much there. What have you learned from the Jazwares deal?
What has been really interesting is how systemic sexism comes in many forms. And this is not at all a hit on any industry. But, obviously when the Jazwares deal has been announced for a little while now. And so everyone's when's the doll coming out? When is it there? But actually, in designing the doll, one of the things that Yam feels really strongly about is a World of Women doll doesn't look like a Barbie. all the traits for World of Women were intentionally designed so that, you could look at it and see yourself in the collection no matter what part of the world you come from, right? So when you're translating...
There's like body proportions too on a Barbie. You're like, that a woman can't do that.
Right. And that's probably not the vision that any of us would put out there today, right?
Yeah.
Barbies obviously came out in a different era. And so if we're designing something today, it truly does break the mold. Like, there is no mold for a diverse body. There is no mold for the type of facial features that we have for WoW, because it is coming from this perspective of inclusion and representation. And so everything becomes more expensive and everything becomes a longer time frame, because we're really building from scratch. So you do sort of feel this sense of, hey, you're pressured in Web3, like, announce something, let's have it tomorrow. But, undoing systemic, challenges to how we view, gender in society takes a long time. And I see it in the doll, but I think it's a great metaphor for some of the other things that we're working on.
It's amazing to me that you don't have a mold for just a more diverse, like at this day and age, somebody else hasn't, that's like not an easily accessible mold. Because there has to be other dolls that have attempted it, right? But it just sounds like it's not as
I mean, wild. I think when you get down to that level of customization of, just kind of bringing it, the full vision of what we want World of Women to be, this global empowering network where everyone feels represented, When
it's funny, I actually know I've been doing some deep dives on Mattel, because I've been interested in talking on this podcast a bit about like how just awakened I've become to how much kids rule our world, and just like, and that it's getting younger, like culture was often set by teenagers or early 20-year-olds, and it's like increasingly becoming like 12-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 9-year-olds, which is, I don't know, mixed feelings about that in a number of ways. But so talking to Mattel and just doing some research on it, I mean, the funny thing with Barbie is it itself was like a controversial doll at the time, because you had a lot of male executives at toy companies that were, or retailers that were like, no, little girls just want to be moms. And so the only dolls they would sell were like mom dolls. And Barbie was like a younger, more career woman.
Yeah.
Even then in the 1950s. And they were like, they want to play with a doll. Girls aren't going to want to play with a doll that's not a mom. This is what it was. They wanted baby dolls. That was all it was. It was like they're moms, so all they want are baby dolls, because they want to play like they are a mom to a baby doll. They don't want a grown woman doll to play with. And so, that was feminist in its own way at the time. And now, of course, and they're trying to, Barbie's getting more diverse and all those things. But so I'm heading to Paris tonight, feeling very lucky for the Ledger conference. This was another announcement y'all made at the WoW Gala, but maybe even a little bit before. I don't know. Maybe it was at WoW that y'all have partnered with Ledger to do an educational series. Speak a little bit to that as we wrap up here.
Super grateful to have Ledger as partners. I think as part of our foundation, one of the things that we're really focused on is security education. Certainly with the market now, I think people are really understanding
if you're going to teach girls how to mint an NFT, teach them how to store the NFT. Teach them how to store.
I think everyone is feeling that in light of, FTX, and really feeling like you want to store your assets securely. So we are having two pieces to this collaboration. One is an educational quest where you can actually learn about security and then be rewarded with a special NFT to showcase that you've gone through the steps of, getting onboarded and improving your skills in the space. And then for those that successfully complete that quest, we have 1,250 customized WoW and WoW Galaxy ledgers that you will be eligible as a holder to get if you complete the quest. The ledgers look extremely cool. I love the design. Yam worked on it personally, and so we're super pumped.
I love that Ledger does these skins, and I'm sure the WoW ones look sick. Well, Shannon, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks. I love doing in-person interviews. This was a blast, and I hope I'll be back in Miami and get to see you again here soon. When you're in New York, you let me know.
I love it. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Overpriced JPEGs. If you liked this conversation, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the show out, and it means you will get alerts and updates when we post new content. Thanks again.